So the Chief of Defense Staff, the most senior military officer in Nigeria, was finally served the kind of breakfast that foreign embassies have been serving Nigerians for God knows how long. And guess where this breakfast was served? Of course, it was at the Canadian embassy. The general was so disappointed that he had to address this issue at a security function recently in Abuja. Watch.
There's an event to honor our veterans, those that were injured during battle. Remember last year, the Duke of Sussex visited Nigeria with his wife. Through the Invictus, they have a foundation that they try to raise the morale of troops all over the world that have suffered one form of deformity or the other in the course of defending their individual countries. So we're supposed to be there. And actually, half of my team have already gone, but unfortunately, the Canadian embassy, for knowledge best known to them, denied us visa. So I wasn't sure, and so I wanted to be silent about it. But when we couldn't get the visa, I said, this is a blessing in disguise. So I'm really very happy to be here. And I think this is just a clear reminder to us that we're on our own, that we need to stand strong as a nation, so that nobody takes us for granted. You could imagine we were invited for the event with our team. Our team, half have gone, half have been denied. So the competition is ongoing with half players there and half back here. It's really very disappointing. But we thank God for everything.
So there are a few things to unpack here. The first of which is to establish context. And I guess the most obvious question to ask is, what was General Musa and his team going to do in Canada? So General Musa and his entourage were heading to Vancouver in Canada to support our representatives at the ongoing Invictus Games. And if you don't already know, the Invictus Games hold biannually for injured or sick military veterans. The Games was of course founded by the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry.
You're winning a whistle.
Now, if you notice, the general himself did not tell us why he in particular was denied that visa. And that for me is very telling. And the reason why this is telling is because high-ranking military officials like him should typically hold a diplomatic passport. So I guess we might have to wait for the almighty Canadian immigration for their response before we can make any categorical statements. But the Minister of Interior sees it very differently.
And I think it speaks to issue of reciprocity of respect, between nations, because somebody who is the Chief of Defense Staff, that's the highest military personnel, in the country, and it's unexpected. It's I'll say it's condemnable, and without knowing the full facts. But I think even for us, in terms of visa policy, it means that issue of reciprocity, as I always say, has to be given due consideration, because when as much as we're not ready to dabble into the sovereignty or sovereign issues of other nations, issue of visas, issue of migration management is it's a sovereign issue. It borders on sovereignty and right of every nation. But as much as we don't want to dabble into that, but we think that it's not disrespect to the Chief of Defense Staff. To me, it's without knowing the facts, it's disrespectful to the country, and it's disrespectful to us as a people. If that can happen to the Chief of Defense Staff, then I'm worried, for an average Nigerian.
Honorable Minister, with due respect to you, that average Nigerian that you referenced has been subjected and continues to be subjected to even far more ridicule and discrimination by many foreign embassies. Even as I speak, hardworking and responsible Nigerians continue to be denied visas for ridiculous reasons and sometimes for no reason at all, and no one in government stands up for them. But now, because an army chief has been meted with the same treatment Nigerians have been served with and continues to be served with.
those that were injured during battle.
We should now rise up in protest against the Canadian
Last year,
government.
the Duke of
No,
Sussex
it's not
visited
happening.
Nigeria with his wife.
And I understand why it might be politically correct for you to be pontificating like you genuinely care about the average Nigerian. But of course, some of us know better. But what could have warranted the Canadian immigration to deny such an high-ranking official of Nigeria a
There's an
visa?
event to honor
I'm not an immigration or foreign affairs expert,
veterans.
but as an enthusiast in these areas, it could be any one of the following reasons. Was there an error while filling his form? Because the truth is that big ogas like this army chief oftentimes don't fill those boring and annoying immigration forms themselves. So it could be that one of his boys made a mistake while filling those annoying visa forms. And from my little knowledge of how visa offices work, all visa applications are treated on a case-by-case assessment. Or could it be that it was a case of not applying for the appropriate visa category? These things come across as basic, but trust me, even the high and mighty still make these kinds of mistakes.
Those that were injured.
And what if it was a case of an important document missing from his application? My second suspicion is that there could have been a recent change in Canada's immigration or foreign policy, which may have affected high-ranking individuals like himself. And this has happened to me before in this country, even though, of course, I was a regular everyday guy in this country. That year, I had traveled to Nigeria, and while I was away, immigration had dramatically changed a policy that ensured that I couldn't return to the country until my conditions changed. My third suspicion is, given General Musa's prominent role as a top military official in Nigeria, and of course, his role in the fight against terrorism in Nigeria, Canadian authorities may be concerned about his human rights record, which is something, of course, they don't joke with in countries like United States and, of course, Canada. Now, I know this next one might sound petty, but given the penchant of top government officials in Nigeria to oftentimes turn official assignments into vacation or a circus, we can certainly rule this one out. What if the reason for denial is because of an over-bloated delegation to the games that included family members who have no official role to play at the games? What if? Haven't we seen such outrageous movies in the past? And of course, the last reason could be an oversabi, or should I say, a power-drunk visa officer, in whose world discretion doesn't exist. So a visa issue that could have been resolved with just a phone call or an email is met with an outright refusal, no matter how highly placed the individual involved is. Such incompetence and outrageous behavior, believe it or not, still exists in many foreign embassies. I'm still talking about outrageous behavior. The National Security Advisor of the country, who incidentally was also present at the function where the defense chief spoke, said this.
Thank you for the courage to say that Canada denied you. They can go to hell. Even though it's painful, it's disrespectful, but we are people. We are strong. And I agree with you. We have to fix our country.
We must learn a lesson.
We have to do it well. Yes, this disrespect is too much. So, yet is another reason why we work hard to make Nigeria work and be respected.
Again, it is perfectly okay to show solidarity to your colleague, but your choice of words, Malam, is very disappointing.
Thank you for your
And as I said earlier, where was this kind of outrage when legitimate and hardworking Nigerians are denied visas for the most stupid reasons? By the way, what is this talk about we need to fix our country because an army chief was denied a visa to Canada?
We have to fix our country.
Honestly, I fail to see the nexus here. So if the same visa denial situation had happened to the military chiefs in South Africa or Rwanda, does it mean the answer is for them to go and fix their country?
We work hard.
And that's why context is very important, which is why I painstakingly established this at the outset. And for Christ's sake, I understand there is a mountain of problems to fix in Nigeria. But let's not get things mixed up here. I mean, this is not a case of a Nigerian who wanted to japa or is going on medical tourism. In which case, it would have been perfectly acceptable to suggest fixing our country. So this talk about we need to fix our country in this particular context is highly misplaced. You guys make it sound as though once we fix our country, then we don't have any need to interact with the outside world. And that would mean not attending games like this, just because we think we have arrived. Even the almighty United States of America cannot afford this kind of isolationist attitude.